Hetepu, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Haru Nefer. This is Kasak Ma Keparu with another video for you. And in this video, I want to talk about why reparations for blacks may be a mistake. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. This is your first time to my channel. Welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. And if you are interested in learning more about my teachings and the esoteric, please click on any one of the links below to download a free ebook. And you can start reading that right away. Also, if you're not already a supporter of ours on Patreon, please consider being a supporter. You can do so for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. It's up to you. You get exclusive access to content that teaches you about the esoteric, teaches you about meditation, how to invoke the ancestors, how to invoke a spirit to protect you, how to do Qigong, how to work with oracles, and you'll get your oracle readings for free. So become a Patreon supporter. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started. So, Haru Nefer, I wanted to do a really quick video with you because I wanted to talk about this subject of reparations and why it always bothered me when this discussion would come about, where we would bring this issue to the forefront of the political agenda. So let me just take a step back to understand that Malcolm X was originally going to go before the World Court to seek protest and seek human rights, not just civil rights, for African Americans. Now, this would also be tied to, of course, reparations. Now, however, conveniently, one of the laws now, which is, is fairly recent. I don't know, I think in the last, 40 years or so or something. We'll have to go back and check that. The World Court has mandated that it cannot pass. Well, let's put it this way. We've already know that a verdict has been issued stating that the United States, when it comes to African Americans, has committed human rights violations. That has been established. They have admitted that. But the other thing is now no punitive or any type of justice can be served, because there's this little rule and loophole saying that if you are so a member of the World Court of the United Nations, you cannot be sought after for justice. So that prevents any type of follow through on the human rights issues. So they're bringing this before the World Court. This issue is just a waste of time at this point. But here's where I wanted to get into this. It's very necessary, and it's important that this issue of reparations comes up as part of the political agenda. The president alone cannot make this happen. But pressure can be put on him to follow through with it. Now, how much you think African Americans should get? Well, it could be in a range of trillions of dollars, because you're looking at the people who were brought here, expatriatized, brought here, used as slaves, and never were given compensation for it. And that money and that inheritance was then transferred over or acquired by whites. So if in many instances, like we know that when blacks did try to create avenues of opportunity for themselves, it was either burnt down or we were subject to lynchings, Jim Crow laws, all of that. But the important thing to remember is that a lot of African-American women who had babies by white slave masters, those babies never were legitimate inheritance of the wealth from that slave plantation. And so we're seeing, in part, is that Jewish people and Native Americans have received reparations, but yet African Americans, there seems to be a pushback on that. COVID-19 comes along, which proves that our government has a storehouse of money that it can immediately pull out in times of emergency or in times of need. So their argument for there needs to be more studies. We don't know if this can be done. Doesn't hold any water, because now we see when COVID-19 hit that all of a sudden it was very quickly, this whole issue was pushed through, and they were able to pass it and get us these COVID checks and things of that nature. So it is obvious that they can do the same thing for African Americans. But we have to take a pause for a moment there. Let me just put this on the table for you to consider, and I want you to think about. The reason why I always had reservations about asking for reparations and making it a major political agenda, because you have to understand one thing, all right? If you subscribe to the notion, which the evidence is there's a preponderance of the evidence, and no real smoking gun, but maybe there is, that they want to depopulate the planet of people of color. If you go by that notion, then you subscribe to that theory, then you know that reparations would absolutely be out of the question. Because if you're trying to exterminate a people, the last thing you want to do is afford them an opportunity to increase the numbers, to get their people back together again. And reparations does accomplish that. All right. So what we have to start looking at and saying, how do we position this? How does this work? Because I'm a firm believer, based on the evidence, which to me is a smoking gun, that the real agenda of the cabal is to depopulate the planet of people of color. That is self-evident by the mere fact that you look at every country, third world country of color, has been colonized, taken over. The native people have been subjugated by the colonizing whites, and eradicated most of the indigenous population, case in point here in North America. And when you look at the diabolical attempts to do this here, it doesn't come in the same form. You'll see what the ruling elite, they got really clever, all right? And this is, if you want to watch an interesting film to get some perspective on this, is The First Batman with Michael Keaton, where the Joker had put some deadly chemical into a beauty product. And when you put it on your face, it would deform you. Now, they were trying to find where he put the chemical in. Was it cream, facial cream, spray, what it was? What they found out, what Batman found out, the great detective, was that the Joker didn't just put the poison into one particular beauty product, but he tainted all of them. And it was through a specific mixture and combination that activated the dissolving particle that would deform your face. So what am I saying to you? I'm saying the situation we're facing with African Americans in this country is not one where there is one specific thing that is causing the depopulation. But what the ruling elite, the cabal, has done is they have conveniently worked in a multifaceted operation, meaning that they have certain things that they know contribute to depopulation. Let's look at the tobacco industry for one. The tobacco industry have studies to prove that African Americans had low self-esteem, and that targeting them would increase their sales in a way, allegedly. Okay, so there a lot of the strong markets you will see are geared in African American communities. Same with the alcohol industry, which is teamed up with the movie industry, and they push the alcohol in the movies. Now, what we're saying is this: we're saying that there are conditions in North America that put us at a position, or that we're predisposed to, that will greatly decrease our numbers. All right, and you can look at it from the medical history of African Americans have high diabetes, men suffer from prostate cancer, and the list goes on. Now, those are just legitimate medical issues, but then we're getting into the clandestine things that they're doing, which obviously is an attempt to delete the race, such as you see TV commercials. They're showing these multiracial couples all the time. You just see these multiracial couples. That's just part of their scheme to dilute the population. That's what they want. Pushing other agendas and marginalizing our agenda is a way to ensure that our population does not increase and get the resources that we need. And this is what they continually do. They put white women ahead of African Americans, and they claim white women is a greater minority than African Americans. So then white women will get the benefits of civil rights and things of that nature. So we have to start looking at all of these and say to ourselves, if it is true that they want to depopulate the planet and wipe out people of color, if that is true, then the call for reparations is kind of like a moot point. It's like we're not even going to get into that because we know that won't happen. So if you are a firm believer in that they're trying to exterminate people of color, and if you read some of my work where I kind of document the fact that they are, then you know that it's going to be problematic to get reparations. But what we can do, I believe, to be more effective and more controversial is to tie the two together. And let me explain. We're demanding reparations based on what has happened during slavery, saying that we need to be compensated for the work that we put in and the wealth and the legacy of wealth. I mean, that's a very important point. The wealth and the legacy of wealth was robbed from us. So this country owes us a debt, and we need $3 trillion, whatever the cost is, right? But that's just looking back. Now, let me jump for something that really gets into the realm of statistics and modeling and things of that nature. You need to understand this. For us to pretend like there are no computer programs that simulate things of this nature, we're fooling ourselves. So what do I mean by that? I know that when I began gaming and programming, that you can create a program and that you could model in a typical African-American, Asian, put the parameters in, multiply them, and come up with how many people are like projected to be in their race. Like we know that African Americans represent 15% of the population in North America, right? And then you project that outward into the future, given the parameters of the high diabetes, high blood pressure, all those things. And you can say, based on the fact that they currently represent 15% of the American population, in 50 years, how much more will there be? Will it increase or decrease? And I guarantee you that, and when you start putting parameters like mass consumers, alcohol, substance abuse, like I said, diabetes, hypertension, prostate cancer, heart problems, obesity with Black women. When you start putting all those factors in there, that computer model is going to start spitting out some hard truths. And it's going to tell you that there is a possibility of the race being endangered in North America. We're not talking globally. With that as the basis, I think we're looking back too much and not looking ahead, because we have to make the case and say, based on the traumatic events that we went through, slavery, then Jim Crow, redlining, and such, we are now demanding reparations. But more importantly, because we don't want to go the way of the Native Americans, which is where we see our population going, because we see a decrease in the population. Of course, they're going to argue that point and try to do census data to show the opposite, but they're going to be lying. But we do know that the population of African Americans will not, it's going to grow and reach a plateau, and then I think it's going to go down. The current projections that they have done have said that our population, combined population of African Americans, Latinos, and Asians in this country will outnumber whites in 2050. But that doesn't look at us as an individual group and address our specific issues. So what I'm saying is, I think the case that we need to make is to look at the past and say, based on the past, which is now going to directly affect our future, where we are looking at becoming an endangered race, there needs to be reparations, and we need to head this off while we still can. And if you look at wildlife and you look at those organizations that are wildlife preservationists, they always talk about intervening before it's too late. And what I'm telling you now is what the cabal is doing in putting out, they're communicating to these young rappers to put out lyrics that are detrimental to Black men and Black women. They're saying things about getting on Molly, using drugs. It's okay, based on diabolical stuff like that, based on chemicals they're putting in the water to make it so that we cannot reproduce. We don't have sexual drive. They've done the experiments on frogs and things of that nature and find out that they actually lose their phallus, their reproductive organs, due to this chemical that they found was being put in the water. And it was an African American scientist who discovered this, and I did a film about it actually. So we know that they're doing all of these attempts. For example, COVID-19. We know that disproportionately affects African Americans. So it devastates the lower income African Americans, which is a large majority of the population. It devastates our population more than it devastates the white population. So we have to talk about the fact that there's a great debt owed to us. And if we don't receive that debt, then it can mean the difference between us being here in the future or not. And based on that, we need reparations. Because I think going about it singly and saying we just want reparations based on what's happened in the past is a great argument. It's a great case. But I'm more of the conspiracy mindset that, hey, they're trying to depopulate the race. It's not to their advantage to give us reparations. You understand what I mean? And let me explain how it differs between Native Americans. The Native American population in this country has already been wiped out. It's already been wiped out. Giving that small percentage of a reparations package, or I forgot how much they got, will not suddenly spur growth in their community, will not suddenly have them repopulate the country. It's not. They've lost a significant amount of the population, which they will never, ever get back. So giving them reparations at this point doesn't matter because they can't, it's not going to increase their population. But giving African Americans reparations at this point will increase our population, will protect us and help us. We'll be able to get better medical health care. We'll be better apt to start our own businesses and build an economic infrastructure. Everything they don't want and everything it's tried to prevent. So I wanted to make that video so that you get an idea of the battle we're facing, what's really going on. And I think we have to think holistic here, is that we're going to say, hey, listen, if you're going to give out reparations for what you did for Jews and Native Americans, we need reparations based on two fundamental reasons: because of slavery and the depopulation of our race moving into the future, which we have data based on computer modeling to reflect the fact that our numbers will be dwindling come 2050 or whatever. You know, the computer simulation can do that. We can totally do that, and we should have done that on our own. Plugging in, like I said, just the basic parameters and letting the computer project outward in terms of the population. And if the computer comes back and it projects that we will increase in the future, hey, that's great. I seriously doubt it will project that. I would bet money on the fact that it would not project that, because we're dying. I mean, if you take into account also black on black crime, then I mean, your unemployment, you know, it's just so many factors that are against us that have been created by the society purposely to be against us, by putting us in ghetto communities that's purposely designed. We're designed to stay there, not getting us equal opportunity in certain jobs. The universities close the doors to us. I mean, the major universities like Harvard and Yale, and you know, so let me just answer. I think he's saying so. There are only Boolean expressions that are executed based on parameters put into methods from the IDE library. Eclipse versus. Well, the Boolean expressions are exactly what we want, because that's going to be a thread of different, I call it parameters, but different ailments or things that we suffer from that will have an impact on the reproduction of the race. So there is a way to do it, and who knows, I may take it upon myself to do it, because I would very much like to see what it would say. Now, I want to ask you this question, Dozier and all those in the chat room. If I could have access to that information and go and run that scenario, Don't you think that the ruling elite, with their endless source of wealth and power, have quantum computers that could calculate this in a nanosecond? Don't you think they can do this? And of course they can. And don't you think they have done this? So they know. So the important thing is, I want you to take away, I do support ADOS in their fight for reparations, because I think they did a great job of putting it on the political agenda. But I also think that we need to have a serious and deadly discussion about if we're going to be here in the future. What's that going to look like if we're here in the future? Are we going to be scarce, a dying race, or are we going to be very fruitful and multiply? And I think it's based on what support we get at this stage right now. If the support comes in time, we can head off this extinction. If it doesn't come in time, there's nothing we can do, because we can look at, as I said, Native Americans and say, there's nothing you can do for them right now to increase their population. It's dead. It's over. Whatever they have now is it. It may increase by 1 or 2%, but that's it. So hold on one second. Sorry about that. But right now, I think if the adequate support is given, I think that we could not only thrive and reproduce in the future, but we could become a very stable, economically strong, politically strong people as well. That's why I don't think they want to give us the reparations. So they rather see the scenario play itself out. What's on their side is stalling. If the more they stall, then the more we move into 2050 and beyond, and our population starts to decrease. And all they're going to continue to do is to interject more sinister plans, these little things that they do, which further help to depopulate our race. And so I think that's a lot about they're going to continue to do that. It's to their benefit, So again, I think that this reparation thing will be on the table, but I also believe that they're going to string it out. That they're going to stall, and while they're stalling, we're going to be losing patience and dying out. So we need to take action right now. So that's the video. I just want to make that really one quick thing to talk about. I think it's very important that we consider that, think about it. Let me know your opinion. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to know. This is Gasank Ma Keperu, son of Matan Tahuti. My heart is a beautiful God that set a root. Until my next video, I'm in Ra.